All right. Can you hear me? All right. I've got a lot of pages I have to go through, so I got cheat sheets. Hopefully that benefits you. First thing I want to do is I do want to thank the church for hosting this. The last 7 or 8 weeks has been the ride of my life. I've talked to people. I've done a lot of things that as a dad I thought I would never do. And I'm humbled by what I see here tonight, especially in the cold weather. I thank you for coming out. I really do. I appreciate the politicians that are here. We got Mr. Van Huss. We got Matthew Hill. We have Timothy Hill. And these are good guys, okay? These are good guys. These are guys that are fighting for us. One other person I do want to recognize before I get started here is, I'm glad Laura Cardoza-Moore is here. Good to see her. But George West, I want you to stand, if you would, please. Give George a hand. George has been instrumental in helping us get this thing to where we are. And George, I want to thank you. We owe you a great debt, a great gratitude. What I want to do, somebody asked me and says, what do you try to do when you give a presentation? Well, here's what I'd like to do. It's just like you open up a puzzle and you dump a lot of pieces out, right? This little piece goes here, this little piece goes there, and the next thing you know, you've got a complete picture. Well, that's exactly what I want to do tonight. I want to put a lot of these puzzle pieces together, and when I'm done, I want you to be able to say, I get it, I see, I understand, it makes sense. Okay? Now, we're going to go through some of these really, really quickly because I definitely want to give Lori her due time. I appreciate her coming in from Nashville and speaking with us. But this is the Facebook website. A lot of people say, where can I go get some of this information? Where can I find the things that I'm looking for? This is the Facebook page. So if you go here, you can find a lot of the information. We're going to try to have the DVD of this posted there so someone didn't get a chance to watch it. You can actually go here. But before I make you mad and upset, because if you don't get mad and you don't get upset, there's something wrong. Okay? I found this picture here, and I thought, man, that says a lot. I mean, look at the face of that kid. You know, you want to teach me what in kindergarten? So, yeah, I was hoping we'd get a little laugh out of you there. Okay, how does it all start? My daughter's in 7th grade. Now, I understand we're in Washington County. My daughter goes to Bristol, Tennessee City Schools. She came home several weeks back, and she said, Dad, we're studying Islam. I said, okay, honey. She said, but something very interesting happened. She said, another student raised her hand and said, will we be studying Christianity? And the teacher said, no, there's not a unit of study for Christianity. She said, all of a sudden, you could almost hear the entire class sigh, like, really? You're going to subject us to this? So, what I did was I sent an email to the teacher. Now, up to this point, I've never called out the teacher. I've never called out the principal. I've never called out the school. I'm not here to vilify. I'm not here to get anybody fired. I'm after the curriculum. And you'll understand why in just a moment. All right? At the bottom, it says, I am the father of your student. How long will you be studying Islam, and how much time will be dedicating to studying Christianity? Her response at the top. The state of Tennessee requires all world history teachers to cover 10 standards within the unit of Islam. Our pacing guide will allow us about 3.5 to 4 weeks. Look at the bold. She says, there is not a unit of study for Christianity. That's the email to me. Okay? Go to the bottom. Since this is issued by the state of Tennessee, is this part of Common Core curriculum that you must teach Islam? Top. She says, good morning. The entire world history curriculum is solely issued by the state of Tennessee. We teach only state standards. Common Core is not involved. Bottom. I received the pacing guide and looked over it that she had sent me, and it says I also visited the state's education website. You say Common Core is not involved, yet it says Common Core pacing guide. Now, this is what they sent me. I did not request this. I did not ask for this. I did not Google this. At the direction of the principal to the history teacher, this was sent to me. It says World History Pacing Guide. If you open up that attachment, there's what you got. 7th grade, Common Core Social Studies, pacing guide. Now, I have had everybody and their brother try to rip this apart. It's not Common Core. It's not. Well, let me ask you a question. Why does it say Common Core? Who put that there? If that was the teacher that wrote it, does the history teacher not know enough about what she's teaching that she puts Common Core? They sent that to me. I didn't ask it. I didn't look for it. I didn't request it. Okay? Some of the things to notice here. Fall of the Roman Empire. 2 standards. That's not 2 weeks. That's only 2 standards. Islamic world, 3.5 to 4 weeks. Africa, 3 weeks. China, 3 weeks. Japan, 2 weeks. Why do we need to give Islam 4 weeks? Ask yourself that question. Why do we need to give Islam 4 weeks? So, what I did was I started looking into Common Core. This is their webpage. Now, I want you to notice something here, and this is just a quick side note. It says mathematics standards. Can I ask you a question? When did math expire? I've thought about this today. Seriously, when did math expire? Did it have an expiration date? Did December the 3rd on 2013 or 2010, some news media outlet said, oh, math expired. We have to teach it a new way. Under the old math, we fought the Second World War. We put men on the moon. We didn't have all this break this down and put this here and circle this there. We didn't have that. I'm looking at a crowd of people. We didn't learn math this way. When did it expire? When is it not relevant? When is it not good anymore? Okay? That's just for kicks and giggles. All right. Here's the Common Core main web page. If you go here, you're going to find a map of the United States. What I did was I clicked on the state of Tennessee to find out the connection between Common Core and the state of Tennessee. If you do that, it takes you to this page here, TN Core. On the right-hand side in yellow, you'll notice it says Literacy in Social Studies. Now, that's a big loophole. I want to point this out to you here in just a moment. If you go to the bottom of, that's the front page. If you go to the bottom of this page, look what it says. It says Copyright TN Common Core Standards. It's on the Department of Education's website. TN Common Core Standards. Tennessee State Standards, talking about in literacy again. If you look at the social studies content, this is where it actually comes from, the state, as to what will be taught. Here it is. Islamic world, 400 AD to 1500. It says students analyze the geographical, political, economical, social, and religious structures of civilization. Now, if you want to teach a few days of Islam in a historic aspect, I'm fine with that. What you're going to find in the next few minutes is anything but historic. It's indoctrination, it's religion, it's theology, it's philosophy, it's how to convert. I found new stuff in here that actually scared me in my boots when I was doing my research, since I presented this 2 weeks ago. So here's where it comes from. State of Tennessee. The Common Core State Standards for English Language Arts and Literacy is history and social studies. Again, they're masking. They're saying, well, it's not Common Core, it's literacy in Common Core. Well, we'll expound upon that in just a moment, but that's from their own webpage. Back about a week and a half ago, the city of Bristol had a PTA meeting. And from my understanding, that meeting did not go too well for them. A lot of opposition there. But Dr. Lilly over the school said, you know, this is all blown out of proportion. It's not what you think it is. People are making a big fuss out of things that it's not. Well, I just kind of wrote some things down here. I said this is the last meeting. So if it's not what it looks like it says it is, let's look at some other statements that some other people have made. President Obama says, in referring to ISIS, that the Islamic State is not Islamic. Okay. Susan Rice, the United States National Security Advisor, says that the attack that killed 4 Americans in Benghazi, Libya, now remember that, was not an organized terrorist attack. It was blamed on an Islamic video, although it is now proven that it was a terrorist attack. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said in testimony to Senator Ron Johnson about the Benghazi attacks, what difference at this point does it make? Does that settle well with you? Not at all. The Washington Times reports The Pentagon says that the Fort Hood shooter, Nadal Malik Hassan, was not a terrorist. It was workplace violence, and all the while, he's shouting Allah Akbar while he kills 13 on a military base. Joe Scarborough from MSNBC reports that the FBI is calling the female beheading in Oklahoma workplace violence, not an act of terror. The Associated Press reports that Nolan was a recent Muslim convert that was trying to convert other co-workers to Islam. Fox News reports that Nolan's Facebook name, since converting to Islam, he had posted was Jaim Kayi Yeshriel. On his Facebook page, he posted this just before he did the beheading. He says, America so-called helps Iraq, not. Well, why can't you help the Gaza citizens against Israel, LOL. I upload this pic because America and Israel are wicked. Wake up, you Muslims. But that's workplace violence. Okay? Now back to Common Core. The documentation, the research all says Common Core. It's all over it. The Pacing Guide says Common Core. The Cleveland Middle School Curriculum Companion says Common Core. The state's own website says Copyright T in Common Core. Pearson's own website says Common Core Skills Practice, but we're told it's not Common Core. If this is not connected in any way to Common Core, this is the best counterfeit I've ever seen. The best counterfeit I have ever seen. It's like a mirror. When you look in the mirror, you see an exact copy of the original. These Tennessee state standards are so aligned and mirrored with Common Core that you cannot tell the difference. You cannot tell the difference. All right. How did Common Core come about? Pastor Scott mentioned it just a moment ago. How Bill Gates pulled off the swift Common Core revolution. Some of these I'm going to read really fast because there's a lot of information to cover. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation didn't just bankroll the development of what become known as the Common Core state standards with more than $200 million. The foundation also built political support across the country, persuading state governments to make systematic and costly changes. The Gates Foundation spread money across the political spectrum to entities including big teachers' unions, the American Federation of Teachers, the National Education and Business Organization, such as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, groups that have clashed in the past but became vocal backers of the standards. Now, this is from the Washington Post. No wonder everybody loves Common Core. They're getting paid. Follow the money. He's invested $200 million to bankroll, to bank and support the initiatives to get Common Core to where it's at today. That meeting that I talked to you about the other day in Bristol, Tennessee, Jared Bingham, he is the Director of College and Career Readiness with SCORE. It's the State Collaborative on Reforming Education. Listen, this Islam thing, it's not what you think it is. You know, let's look at the positives of Common Core. Let's look at the numbers. Let's look at where Tennessee was before Common Core. Let's look at the numbers of where we're at now. Numbers this, numbers that, positive this, positive that. I asked everybody in this, and they didn't know this. I knew it just because of my research. I said, did he happen to mention 2.8? And they said, 2.8? What's 2.8? I said, so he cites all these positive numbers and these things, but he doesn't cite 2.8. They said, no, what's 2.8? $2.8 million Tennessee SCORE has taken from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. What do you think he's going to do? Is he going to stand up and talk about how bad Common Core is? He's banked almost $3 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. How come he didn't disclose that in his meeting? $266,000, $499,000, $250,000, $50,000, $90,000, $900,000, $500,000, $2.8 million. Here's where it gets hairy. Press release from Bill Haslam's office. At the bottom, how will the information be collected? Now, if you've seen the paper here recently, he's put this committee together that's going to review the Common Core data that's going to be put in. And here's what it says. It says, the State Board of Education has enlisted services of the Southern Regional Education Board, SREB, as an independent, let that sink in, independent, nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that works with 16 member states, including Tennessee, to improve public education at every level. SREB will collect the online public feedback and provide the information to the State Board of Education. Now, let me throw you a quick note here. Laws have just recently changed, but when they come in to re-elect that board, it's a board of 9. Do you know how that board gets put together? They're not elected. They're appointed. Haslam gets 3, Lieutenant Governor gets 3, Beth Harwell, Speaker of the House, gets 3. There's your board of 9. Okay? Now, an independent. Let's look here. The Tennessean newspaper. As part of Common Core review, the Southern Regional Education Board, acting as a third party and independent resource, it's almost funny, is to collect data from the website in the spring before turning information over to be reviewed and analyzed by 2 committees and 6 advisory teams comprised of professional Tennessee educators. But here's the problem, guys. They've taken $12 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. How independent can you be? SREB. That's it. The Southern Region Education Board. There's the numbers off the Bill. How can you be independent when you've taken $12 million from the man that's funding Common Core? Figure that one out. All right? If that one don't get you, I'm sorry, this one might. I went to the SREB's board and I pulled up their board members in Tennessee. Look who's on the board. Bill Haslam's on the board. He's pro-Common Core. He's on the board. The board's taking $12 million from Bill and Melinda Gates, and we're supposed to assume that this is just an independent? Where are we going to get any value out of this? It's smoke and mirrors. You read in the newspaper, oh, the governor's doing something about it. What's he really doing about it? Right there it is. I just showed you in black and white. The money's there. He's on the board. Something to think about. I kept researching Common Core. I come across this. A middle school Common Core curriculum of online resources for social studies teachers and students. A middle school Common Core curriculum guide. Do you know what that CMS stands for? It's Cleveland Middle Schools. Not Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland, Tennessee. If you go and you click on that link, it takes you directly in here. If you go to 7th grade and you look at history, it's identical to what's being taught in Bristol, Tennessee. Roman Empire, Islamic world, and if you look, there's your 400 to 1500. The exact same thing. If you scroll down to the bottom of that page, here's what it says. Excerpts from many of the primary sources highlighted in the Common Core curriculum. But yet again, we're told this is not Common Core. It is not connected. This is the middle school's webpage. So, after looking at it, I'm seeing this name Pearson pop up everywhere. Pearson, Pearson, Pearson. What's going on with these people, Pearson? So I started looking into them, okay? If you don't know who Pearson is, Pearson was given the rights to produce curriculum for Common Core. Okay? So the books that are put in front of your students, your grandchildren, or whoever you're here to represent, those books are coming from Pearson Education. Let's see who owns Pearson, see if this bothers you. The New York Times. And by the way, if you'll notice a lot of my sourcing's left, I don't want anybody to walk out of here and say, all I did was source the Blaze and Fox News. Okay? You're going to see a lot of left media here. It says, with Libya's hidden wealth may be the next battle. It says, with a sizable pot of ready cash and stakes in a few elite European companies, including the British publisher Pearson, the Italian soccer club Juventus, the fund serves as an emphatic calling card for its founder, Saif al-Islam al-Qaddafi. Do you know what his name means? The Sword of Islam. Why is that important? Last week, the New York Times ran a stunning piece about the investments of the Libyan dictatorship. It says he owns $453 million worth of stock in Pearson. Why? Why do you own stock in Pearson? Libya? Remember we talked just a moment ago about Benghazi? where the 4 Americans were killed, and we still don't have answers for that? This is that Libya. Benghazi is the second largest city in Libya. It says, since the prediction, Pearson has experienced massive growth. The company's global revenues from testing grew from $293 million to $1.64 billion. How much of this money is made off of testing? If you go testing. If you go to the bottom, it says that would mean the company likely made about $150 million in profit over standardized testing. Let me ask you this. Do you send your kids to school to be money makers? No. You send them there to be educated. They're not there for you to make a buck off of. You send them there to teach them. This is not teaching. And you're going to see here in just a minute all of the ties and how these pieces of this puzzle get put together. Bradley County News. Common Core. Libya-owned Pearson is at the core of Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam's Islamic policies in our state. In the last few years, we've seen a movement in our country to nationalize our education system to implement Common Core in all of our schools. Have I got the right one? Okay. The LIA, the Libyan Investment Authority, and 5 members of Gaddafi's family own the stock. They own stock in Pearson. With the Pearson portfolio this huge, it surely carries great influence on the content inside its books and our elected leaders. In the Middle East, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, I want you to notice this, CARE, and the Muslim Brotherhood have invested heavily in Pearson education and K-12 learning vehicles. Why do they care? Don't you think there's an ulterior motive to why they're investing in our textbooks? It goes on to say this. It has been even reported by Bill Karach that the Pearson owners are deeply involved in the Muslim Brotherhood and linked to CARE. I'll show you that in just a moment. The Muslim Brotherhood documents seized by the FBI and presented at the Holy Land Foundation trial in Texas. Now I want you to look at this. This is an FBI investigation. They took them to trial in Texas. Look what they found out during this trial. It says the FBI presented the Holy Land Foundation trial revealed a plan by Muslim Brotherhood and their subsidiary organizations like CARE to penetrate and indoctrinate American K-12 students. To penetrate and indoctrinate. Why do you think they're buying stock in Pearson? Key Pearson textbook consultants on Islam, Susan Douglas and Shabir Mansouri, have both been connected to the Muslim Brotherhood and voiced strong support of Islamic madrasa, Islamic schools where hate for Jews and Christians is daily lesson. At the very least, the Pearson-Libya connection and others who may own Pearson bear deeper scrutiny. This is from the Investigative Project on Terrorism. It says, CARE was founded in part with donations from the Holy Land Foundation. Now, if you don't know who the Holy Land Foundation is, that's a front name for Hamas. If you follow anything about Hamas, you know the terror that they are putting the people from Israel in. I mean, Sean Hannity was over the other day, and they found all the tunnels and how they're hiding their missiles and bombs under schools and hospitals. And then as soon as Israel retaliates, all the news media is all over bashing Israel. Well, what would you do? What would you do? And by the way, I'm going on the record by saying I think Israel's God's people. Okay? But the question was asked. If you go to the middle, it says, during a 2003 civil disposition, CARE Incorporator Ahmad was asked, did they, the HLF, give you money to help start CARE? He responded unequivocally, no. If you go down to the third paragraph toward the end, it says, Executive Dr. Awad also denied that CARE had ever received money from the HLF, declaring our organization did not receive any seed money from the HLFRD. There's a check. We didn't do it. Unequivocally, no. When the investigative project Matthew Epstein produced a copy of the check at the Senate hearing, however, Awad had no choice but to admit in supplemental testimony that they had indeed received money. Okay? That's a terrorist organization. You're going to see here in a minute that CARE is sourcing some of the curriculum in the Bristol, Tennessee city schools. I'm going to show it to you. Even the Catholic Church is concerned. You could say, and it's titled Common Core and Care. Why should you care? You could say, without any exaggeration, that CARE is the media's common core. How CARE is the acronym for the Council on American Islamic Relations, a PR front group that presents the good face of Islam to the public. CARE has strong ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. The bottom. I cannot prove it right now. I can. I cannot prove it right now that CARE has a hand in Common Core principles. Certainly at the present, the American government schools are pro-Islamic and anti-Christian. Very important to CARE. It says, when anyone raises alarm about the Common Core and CARE, the connection there, their spokesman just offers the usual cliches about alarmists and so forth. Then they provide some soothe-talking ally about public fears. There's nothing here. Don't worry about it. You're just an extremist. There's no connection here. And that's from the CatholicTradition.org, from the Catholic Church. Daily roll call. U.S. schools adopting Muslim Common Core standard idea. Should have known all across the U.S. the push for Common Core state standards is on. And guess who's behind the push? The Muslim Brotherhood's #1 front organization, the ISNA, Islamic Society of North America. Now this one, when I read this article, I had to get up from my seat, clear my head, and come back and reread this article because it's from the Huffington Post. If you know anything about the Huffington Post, they're as far left as you can get, okay? Not a friend of the right in any capacity. But I found this article, and it says, Pearson Education, who are these people? The Huffington Post. According to a recent article on Reuters, again, left, an international news service based in Great Britain, investors of all stripes are beginning to sense big profits potentially in the public education. It says Pearson's British multinational conglomerate is one of the largest private businesses maneuvering for U.S. education dollars. Here's where it gets interesting. Starting in May of 2014, Pearson Education will take over teacher certification in New York State as a way of fulfilling the state's promised reforms in its application for federal race to the top money, New York. The article goes on to say, the question that must be addressed is whether the British publishing giant Pearson and its Pearson Education subsidy should determine who's qualified to teach and what should be taught in New York State and the United States. The writer of the article says, I don't think so. Not only did no one elect them, I want you to look at this statement. Not only did no one elect them, but when people learn who they are, they might not want them anywhere near a school. You don't want Pearson near your school when you find out who they are. Guess what? It's too late. They're already in our school. I'll show you the book. I'll show you the pages. I'll show you the curriculum that's put in front of my daughter. They're already in our school. And here, the Huffington Post says, when you really truly find out who Pearson is, you're not even going to want them near a school, let alone already in it. Look how interesting this is. U.S. News and World Report. New York teachers withdraw Common Core support, declare no confidence. The Board of New York Teachers Union on Saturday unanimously voted to withdraw its support for Common Core standards as they are being implemented and declare no confidence in the state's education commissioner. New York don't even want Common Core. Okay? Now, we're East Tennessee. We're Tennesseans. Come on. If New York don't want it, why would Tennessee want it? Okay? Think New York's the only one having problems? Look at this. Common Core Islamic Indoctrination textbook has Floridians outraged. Common Core Islamic indoctrination of students in American schools is overt. This is the goal in Volusia County, Florida. Hundreds are protesting the ode to Islam that is world history. Okay, there's Florida. You guys seen this in Maryland? Former Marine banned from daughter's school after dispute over Islam lesson. Now we're in Maryland. Let's go to Michigan. Mother stunned at her daughter's class assignment in Islam. It goes down into the bold. It says, it states that Christians and Jews and all other religion worship the Muslim God Allah. It also states that Allah is the one and only God. That's Michigan. Let's go to Massachusetts. Angry dad pulls son from Massachusetts elementary school over pro-Allah text. A Massachusetts father pulled his son out of the Boston area elementary school after finding the Muslim call to prayer and perceived pro-Allah statements in a textbook. It says, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. Guess what? That's right down here in Bristol. The exact same thing in Massachusetts. Right there it is. Is this Massachusetts? This is North Carolina. Upset mom finds herself contacting the news after reading the answers on her son's Islam worksheet. You guys seeing a pattern here? Look at the states. I mean, I just called out like 6 states. People don't like what their children are being taught. For good reason. Here's Pearson's own webpage. Pearson Arab World Publishing Program. Here's where you're going to start getting upset. Pearson has a page dedicated to the Tennessee Middle School. That's Pearson's website. Look what it says. Tennessee Social Studies Curriculum Standards. Middle School Social Studies. For grades 6 through 8, my daughter's in 7th. For grades 6 through 8, Pearson offers 3 programs especially for Tennessee that include Common Core Skills Practice. But it's not Common Core. I mean, it's... Okay. Let me say this. Let me give you the benefit of the doubt. And I said this in the last meeting. Let's say it's not Common Core. I expect stuff like that to come out of Washington. If it's Common Core, I don't expect it to come out of Nashville. Okay? It shouldn't come out of Nashville. I think we all know what Washington's about. But when the school board and the people in Nashville bring this standard that says, hey, you got to teach 4 weeks of Islam, and then they don't want to accept responsibility for it, what they want to do is they want to bash the local school board for the curriculum that they choose. Well, you know what? Nashville, politicians, not politicians, but the board that put this thing in, if you never gave 4 weeks of standards to the local school board, they wouldn't find 4 weeks of curriculum to put in front of your kids. That's common sense. We have Common Core. We don't have common sense anymore. There's your book. Pearson, Tennessee. My World History and Geography, the Middle Ages to the Exploration of America. Pearson, Tennessee. There's your book. It's already in our schools. If you go to the table of contents, Middle Ages, Islamic world, 400 to 1500. You really need to remember those dates. They'll be relevant here in just a moment. The Tennessee curriculum and the Pearson curriculum, if you look at them side by side, they're identical. They're identical. George can back me up on this. I was on the radio with Lieutenant Ron Ramsey, Governor Ramsey, and he seemed like he was appalled by it. Came back a week later and says, no, it's fine. We all could learn more about Islam. 2 weeks later, he goes back on George's show and says it's toxic. We got to get rid of it. So a lot of people ask me, where does he stand? I can't tell you where he stands. But we gave him this book, and he took it and brought it back to George and myself, and there's a bunch of Post-it notes in it, and this and that says, well, this necessarily never made it back into the classroom. You know, this didn't this, and this didn't that. And I just thought about a couple of things here. It doesn't matter if a page made it into the classroom or not. You put it in our children's curriculum. Okay? It's like someone has posted these files in our curriculum for our children to study in Schoology. And we'll look who Schoology is here in a minute. They've planted the seed. The students are encouraged to go to Schoology and open these files to read and study them and use them as a source when studying and learning about Islam and history. It's the same as saying this. If you had a textbook, it's the same as telling students, go home and read pages 80 to 84. Reference these pages, and they'll help you with class. When the child gets home and starts studying these pages, there's questionable content. So mom and dad pick up the phone. They call the teacher, and they say, my daughter's looking at some questionable material here in these pages. Well, Mr. Smith, we didn't discuss these pages in class. Yeah, but you told my daughter to look at these pages as a reference and a source for this class. I understand, Mr. Smith, but we never covered these pages in class. Oh, so that makes it okay? How crazy is that? All right? That's what they're doing to Schoology. They're saying, go to school, reference these pages, look at them, and then when I bring attention to it, oh, Mr. We never brought those in front of the class. You're planting the seed. It's what you're doing. Okay? The Bible says this. The Bible says, one planteth, one watereth, and God giveth the increase. Do you think the devil doesn't have a seed that he wants to plant too? Do you think he's not going to water his? Do you think he's not going to want his to grow? It's the seed. EdTech Digest. It says one company that should be recognized as Pearson. Pearson announced in May 2012 that they were releasing a PowerSchool API for partners. Now look at this. The founder of Schoology says this. Schoology is a Pearson partner. Why does that matter? I'll show you. Pearson is committed to working with partners such as Schoology. From Pearson's own web page, Pearson partners, classroom collaboration partners with Schoology. Why does that matter? Our kids don't have textbooks. Mine don't. Okay? They're given laptops, which I don't like. But furthermore, do you know who the operating system is on all those laptops? It's Windows. Who owns Microsoft? Who owns Windows? Bill Gates. You completing the loop here? See the connection? We can't see what our kids are learning. If you have a laptop, if you do not know your kid's user ID, if you do not know your kid's password, you can't get into what they're learning. I have a daughter that I have a great relationship with. Everything she has, I have a user ID and I have her passwords. So when she told me she was studying Islam, this is where you have to go to find her curriculum. There's not a book. You don't open a page here and there it is. You have to go hunt this stuff. Unit 2, Islam. Here are my daughter's files. Islam Agenda, Islam PowerPoint, 5 Pillars of Islam. You're going to see this in just a moment. More files. Islamic hip-hop rap lyrics. We'll look at that in just a moment. They studied plenty of Muhammad. Another Islam PowerPoint. Look, Pearson. How do you want to deny it? There's the files. What they did was they took that book that I showed you a moment ago, they scanned the page, put it into a file, and dumped it in Schoology, so that's the only page you can pull up. They're all digital. Quran, Sunnah, Pearson pages, more Pearson pages, more Pearson pages. Dr. Laurie Roth, PhD in counseling. She wrote an article, and here's what the article says that she wrote. Islam on track, stealing our children with Common Core. She says Common Core is no school curriculum, but a national emergency. She says, I've been warning and screaming against Common Core for years now, talking every week with Ruth Bryant White of Breaking News Journal, Christina Mikas, and other leaders shining the light on this madness. The more I research, interview victims, and look at the real lesson plans, I realize that this is a direct and evil plan of Islam, communism, and the New World Order. It is an evil caliphate in full swing that plans to steal, data mine, and control the minds, work choices, and dreams of our children. She goes on. It's a rewrite of history and a push of Islam down our children's throats. She makes the connection between CARE and Hamas. She says Common Core pushes Islamic conversion. Christianity is out. Now here's the page that I really want you to pay close attention to. We're not studying Islam in Common Core. Everybody got that? It's what we're told. All right. Here's what she says. If you were to study Islam and Common Core, if you were, it says the Common Core lesson plan, The lesson plan for teachers, lesson plans in Common Core, 1 is the 5 pillars of Islam. Guys, kind of try to remember these. 5 pillars of Islam. Number 2, submission to the will of Allah. Number 3, and also it talks about a call to jihad. Number 3, converting to Islam. Number 4, what is Islam? Number 5 and 6, you're going to cover the Quran, and you're going to cover Sharia law. Number 7, you're going to cover Islam in the United States. Then it talks about hate crimes, hope, the spirit of Islam, the root causes of Muslim anger with the West. And it talks about creating a huge empire on these 3 continents. Okay? Let's look at the first one. She says you're going to study the 5 pillars of Islam. There it is. Look what it says. The 5 pillars of Islam represent the duties of a Muslim. Like the 10 Commandments, they provide a spiritual foundation and function. Look at the bottom left-hand corner, the Shahada. This makes me mad. I'm sorry, but this makes me mad. Declaration of faith in Allah. The first pillar of Islam is called the Shahada. It is a brief prayer proclaiming the oneness of God and faith in Islam. Children, memorize the Shahada as an action which introduces them to the Islamic community. Here's what they say. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. My daughter had to do a PowerPoint homework assignment on that. Would you want your children doing that? You okay with that? There it is. That's my daughter's curriculum. That's in Schoology. Schoology is a partner with Pearson. Do you know what you just did when you taught that? I want you to look at this. You're saying, well, that's just in the textbook. Let's go to islamworld.net. You got a smartphone. If you got one in your lap, you can check this out while I'm talking about it. Go to islamworld.net. You know what it says? How to become a Muslim. If anyone has a real desire to be a Muslim and has full conviction and strong belief that Islam is the true religion ordained by Allah for all human beings, then one should pronounce the Shahada, the testimony of faith, without further delay. Teachers, school board members, principals, you just taught our children the Christian equivalent of faith in Jesus in Islam. The Bible says this, Romans 10:9, that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. Try teaching that verse and the Christian perspective into public schools and see how far you get. Yet, all over this country, we're teaching the 5 pillars of Islam. You're teaching them how to convert. It says it right here. Pronounce Shahada. I just showed it to you right there. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. It goes past that. They showed our children how to bow to Mecca. Does that not bother your spirit? Does that not trouble your soul that they showed you how to bow to Mecca? Allah Akbar, meaning God is great. That was put in front of our children. What's the second thing she said? If you're going to be studying Islam in Common Core, what was it? Submission to the will of Allah. She's 2 for 2. The Judeo-Christian foundation of Islam. Here's what it says in that PowerPoint. They believe in the Judeo-Christian God, which they called Allah. It's a bold-faced lie. Straight up. They don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. How are you serving the same God as the Christian? How are you serving the same God that I am? You say, well, that's your opinion. Really? Look at this. This is the Quran. Surah 4:171. O followers of the book, do not exceed the limit in your religion and do not speak lies against Allah, but speak the truth. The Messiah, Isa, or Jesus, the son of Mary, is only an apostle of Allah, and his word which he communicated to Maryam, and a spirit from him. Believe therefore in Allah and his apostles. Say not three. In other words, deny the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It says, desist, it is better for you. Allah is only one God. Far be it from his glory that he should have a son. That's the Quran. Look at Surah 4, 157. And they're saying, surely we have killed the Messiah, Isa, Jesus, the son of Maryam. And the apostle of Allah, they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him. We're serving the same God. Not only are you putting junk in front of them, you're lying to them. You're lying to our children. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. John 14:6, Jesus said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. 1 John 2:22. Who is a liar but he that denieth that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist, that denieth the Father and the Son. I said this last time. If you can't stand on anything, you ought to stand right there. You ought to stand right there. I'm getting top heavy here. Third question. She says, submission to the will of Allah, converting to Islam. Look, she's 3 for 3. Why was Islam able to spread so quickly and convert so many to the new religion? It's easy to learn and practice. More importantly, it teaches equality. If you believe that, I got a therapist you need to see. Okay? Islam teaches equality. Does any here really believe that? My gosh. And that's what they're teaching our kids. The bottom, jihad, holy war. She says here, a call to jihad. So far, she's 3 for 3. Here's some of the pages directly out of the curriculum. A final factor in the Muslim success was the appeal of Islam itself. Islam offered followers a direct path to God and salvation. It emphasized the equality of all believers. It stressed fairness and justice in human affairs. For these reasons and others, many non-Muslims chose to convert to Islam. Here's another page from my daughter's curriculum. The policies of the opponents also helped the Muslims. Now look who the bad guys are here. The Byzantines and the Persian rulers had tried to unite the people under an official religion, but they often mistreated those who practiced other faiths. Shame on the Byzantines and the Persians. You should not do that. But when the Muslim armies attacked, many of these people were willing to accept Muslim rule. Why? After the Arabs gained control, they usually let conquered people practice their own religions. That's curriculum in our school. It says Christians and Jews are people of the book, people who believe in one God and follow sacred writings. Therefore, many Muslims respect the beliefs and practices. I want to read that again. Therefore, many Muslims respect their beliefs and practices. They just cut the head off somebody within 48 hours ago. Really? It says, as time passed, many of the conquered people in the Arab Empire became Muslim and learned the Arab language. I went back and I looked at this again. It's changed just a little bit. Do you realize there's 44 conflicts going on across the world right now, like war, fighting, where people are being killed? And of those 44 conflicts, 40 are Islamic-related. Islam is behind 40 of the 44 major conflicts going on across the world right now. All right. She's 3 for 3. Let's see if she goes 4 for 4. What is Islam? The beliefs of Islam. Beliefs of Islam. She's 4 for 4. We're not studying Common Core, but if we were, this is what we would be studying. I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God come to worship. This call contains the most important beliefs of Islam, beliefs in one all-powerful God, and belief that Muhammad was God's final messenger to human beings. The Quran is Islam's holy book and is also the main source of Islamic teachings. Much of the Quran language is written in a poetic style that many Arabic speakers find beautiful. Now, I want you to look at this. Let's see what the Quran actually has to say. Quran 3:151. Soon we shall cast terror into the hearts of the unbelievers. For that they joined companions with Allah, for which He had sent no authority. Quran 4:89. But they that wish that they should reject faith as they do, and thus be on the same footing as they, but take not friends from their ranks until they flee in the way of Allah from what is forbidden. But if they turn renegades, seize them and slay them wherever ye find them. Kill them. Look at the Quran 8:12. I will cast terror into the heart of those who disbelieve. Therefore strike off their heads. It's right there. Beliefs and practices of Islam. The one thing I found really interesting in all this, it's amazing at how the Muslims love Jews and Christians. I mean, Lori, come on now. Yeah. I mean, it's like all throughout this, it's like Muslims, Christians, and Jews are just best buddies. It really is. Beliefs and practices of Islam. Like Jews and Christians, Muslims believe that God spoke to people through prophets. For Muslims, these prophets include Adam, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. In Islam, Muhammad is seen as the last and greatest of these prophets. The collection became the Quran, or the Holy Book of Islam. Muslims believe the Quran is the written word of God. Islamic scholars created a code of law, the Sharia. The Sharia is based on the Quran. According to Sharia, and I want you to notice how quickly and how neatly they package Sharia law. You don't gamble, eat pork, and drink alcoholic beverages. There's a little more to that law than what you're thinking. And we're going to look at that. A little more. Okay. She talks about you're going to cover the Quran. That's 5 for 5. Here it is. Quran, God's last revelation. It says, in the name of Allah, the compassionate, the merciful. Muhammad and his message. Who is Muhammad? It says in my daughter's text, her curriculum, recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot of congealed thickened blood. Recite, and your Lord is most generous, who taught by pen taught men what he did not know. Quran, Surah 96, 1 through 5. Muhammad returned to Mecca and began preaching and told the people that there was only Allah to worship, the one true God. Here's kind of where Obama shows up. Muhammad also preached that people were equal in God's sight and the rich should share their wealth with the poor. Again, in the curriculum. It goes on. Men and women. The Quran and the Sharia laid out clear roles for men and women. Men were expected to support their families and to conduct business in public. Women customarily stayed at home, although some women rose to important positions. In general, however, women had fewer rights than men and occupied an inferior position. Still, overall, Islam improved the conditions for women before the development of Islam. Arab women had virtually no rights, but under the Sharia, women and men had religious equality. I mean, come on, women like to make a stand. Stand against that. That's a joke at how they persecute and how they denigrate women. Makes me sick just seeing how they portray that in here. But look here what it says. Again, we're loving Jews and Christians. Jews and Christians, the Arab Muslim Empire was generally tolerant toward Jews and Christians because Muslims regarded Jews and Christian scriptures as sacred, and they respected Jews and Christians as people of the book. Jews and Christians in Muslim lands were allowed to practice their faith and govern themselves. Unbelievable. Is this starting to strike a chord with anybody? Absolutely. All right. I'm getting close to being done. I want to hear Laurie speak. American thinker. I'm not going to cover all these for lack of time, but I just want to point out some of the highlights. Each one of these are backed up with a verse from the Quran. How the Quran and how the Sharia law oppresses women. It says husbands are a degree above their wives. A male gets a double share of the inheritance over that of the female. A woman's testimony counts half of a man's testimony. Slave girls are sexual property for their male owners. People say, no. Have you guys noticed over in Nigeria they're capturing all these young girls and they're selling them? Why do you think they're doing that? The Quran says you can do that. That's okay. Yeah. A man may be a polygamist with up to 4 wives. A husband may simply get rid of one of his undesirable wives. Husbands may hit their wives even if the husbands merely fear high-handedness in their wives. Mature men are allowed to marry prepubescent girls. Now, they didn't cover that when they were covering Sharia and all the oppression to women. Remember the file I showed you earlier, the hip-hop file? Look what it says. Sharia, the way, is law. Look who put that out. Pearson Education. That's in the Schoology file. I showed you the file before I showed you the document. Islam in America. All right, she's 4 for 4. Now this one had me a little stumped. I kind of make fun of this one. How is Islam in America relevant if you're teaching 400 to 1500 AD? Okay, if we're teaching history, Columbus found America in 1492. So we did a lot of development from 1492 to 1500 if we're supposed to be studying 400 to 1500 in history, but we're studying Islam in America. Okay? Look at this. I'm pretty sure that Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and Washington wasn't around in 1500. How'd that make it into my daughter's curriculum if you're studying 400 to 1500? Why is that file in there? Who put that file in there? Here you go. CARE. Council on American Islamic Relations. Right here's the connection. Here's the sourcing. Mosque locations. Ethnicity of Muslims. Again, provided by CARE. Ethnicity of converts. Provided by CARE. Mosques found. Now, I want you to notice something. We're really doing good here. We're at 1900, and we're working our way back down to 1920. So I need about another 500 pages, and we'll get to 1500. Okay? Why is that slide even in there? You're studying 400 to 1500, and it's got CARE's name on it. Doesn't that make you scratch your head and say, what's going on? Mosque community services. Cash needed for the assistance. I don't care where you look in this curriculum, George West, he's looked through it time and time again. There's nothing negative in any of this. You're talking Muhammad, Quran, Sharia, Allah. This paints the most beautiful picture of anything you have ever seen. If you did not have a religion and you were looking to accept a religion and you look at what's put in front of our children, you would consider this as a religion because there's nothing negative, not one thing I can find in it. It glorifies it all the way. That's where they studied about Muhammad. And I don't even want to get into that. That's another whole show there. All right. We've all heard of Monday morning quarterbacking, right? You watch a football game on Sunday. You turn the radio, TV on Monday morning, and they talk about, well, if you'd have done this and if you'd have done that, maybe the game would have come out. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback after you watch the game, but what happens if the game's not took place yet? Look when Laurie wrote this article. April 18th, 2014. My daughter didn't start studying Islam until the last week of August into September. How's she Monday morning quarterbacking? She's not. She knows something. She's investigated. She's got it together. She hit all 7 of 7. All 7 of 7. She wrote the article 5 months before my daughter even went to school, and she nailed all 7 of 7. But that's just a coincidence. Somebody needs to go buy a lottery ticket if that's a coincidence. All right, I'm closing. Washington Post. Common Core support among teachers plummets with fewer than half supporting it. U.S. News and World Report. Parents turn on Common Core. The more parents hear about Common Core standards, the less they like them. CBS News. Most Americans oppose Common Core standard poll. Support for Common Core educational standards has dropped as awareness of the program has spread over the past years, new polling finds. Among Americans who have heard a great deal about the standards, just 33% support the standards, while 59% oppose them, according to the PDK Gallup poll. This talks about how Common Core lost support, and this is from the Huffington Post. I'm not going to get into this. I've gone long, but this will be on the website for you to look at. WATE, that's in Tennessee. Decreasing teacher support in Tennessee for Common Core standards. 27,000 teachers in Tennessee were polled. Those that responded, it found that 56% of the respondents want to abandon the standards, while 13% would prefer to delay the implementation. Only 31% want to proceed. We don't want it. Why can't Nashville get that through their head? Kids don't want it. Teachers don't want it. Parents don't want it. But we're going to give it to you anyway. Vanderbilt study. It says support for Common Core on the decline among Tennessee teachers. The majority of teachers who responded to the survey opposed the implementation of these standards. Significantly fewer teachers agreed with the statement, teaching to the Common Core state standards will improve student learning in 2014 than in 2015. And I've got one last slide. That's why I'm here. I'm not here for you to walk up and pat me on the back after things over with. I'm not here for you to come up and cuss me because of some of the things I've said. Why am I here? That's my daughter and that's my son. They were walking across the parking lot and I happened to have my camera on me. And my son reached up and he grabbed my daughter's hand. I'm here to fight for them. Grandma, Grandpa, thank you. Here's what I want to say in closing. Grandma, Grandpa, Mom, Dad, Aunt, Uncle, if you're not going to fight for your kids, then what are you going to fight for? What are you going to fight for? Everything else in this world, it doesn't really carry a lot of weight. But there's a soul inside of that child. And it's your responsibility as a parent to protect that as to see what goes in it. You need to stand and be a parent. That's what God made you to be when He gave you that child. Do what's right by your children. Fight for them. Now, here in a little bit, I don't know, Patty Kincaid's here somewhere. She's going to hand out a piece of paper. A lot of people say, what can we do, okay? We're going to have the addresses, the phone numbers of all the legislative people in our area here. If you agree with what I've showed you, that this stuff shouldn't be taught, tomorrow, pick up your phone and call them. Now listen, don't call Matthew Hill, don't call Tim Hill, and don't call Micah Van Hust. They hear you loud and clear. So don't wear them out tomorrow, okay? But those that aren't here, call them. Husband call, wife call. Say, listen, this has got to stop. What are we doing to our children? Okay? I'm just a dad. I've never done anything like this before. I live my life unto my family. I'm a private person. I don't care. But this is different. This is different. We're fighting for the souls of our children. And I hope you saw how the puzzle was put together when I got done. Thank you.